So once again, thank you everyone for attending the Breaking the Glass Ceiling Women in Economics event. This event is the first of its kind in Toronto, and WomEconomics is very, very excited to be partnering with University of Toronto undergraduate economics community and group. They have been amazing. The students have been amazing. I've been to the campus a few times, and you people are superstars. So we're very happy to be collaborating on this event. We do want to give a disclaimer as we begin. So we all know we have four amazing, powerful women who are economists and finance experts in their own fields. They are coming here to share their experiences by themselves, right? They're not trying to talk about what Irish economics thinks or what IMF thinks. So please refrain from asking questions that would kind of question decisions that have been made by their organizations. They're coming in their capacity as professionals to share their experiences and their journeys. And we hope that everyone would respect that. So before we even move further to the the talk for the day, we just wanted to give everyone a little bit of what the agenda would look like. So first of all, we're going to have a quick chat with the WomEconomics team and the UEC team. They're just going to tell us what they are, what they do, upcoming events. And then after that, we'll introduce our panelists and talk about some questions that we want them to answer per International Women's Day theme of accelerating action, about women in economics generally, and career-specific questions so that we can learn more about the kind of analysis and economic analysis that they do, and we can get familiar with those concepts for our career options and choices. Also, after that, we would all divide into a breakout session. So each team would have a panelist in their room, a WomEconomics moderator, and a UEC moderator. We hope that this small intimate setting would help you open up and ask questions and get to know the speakers personally, and also get to know your team. After this, we'll all return to the main room and have final chats, and maybe people can share some things they learned, and then we can then proceed to closing the event. That is the quick agenda for today. So I will pass it on to Kaya to introduce UEC to give their quick presentation.
All right, thank you everyone for coming. Just give me one moment to share my screen and I'll begin. Everyone able to see my screen okay? All right, so hi everyone, I'm Kaya, as Tanya mentioned. I am the Vice President of Academics at the Undergraduate Economics Council, which is the official economic student society at U of T Mississauga. We're looking forward to collaborating with WomEconomics to bring you this event, and we're always looking out for more collaboration. So if you are a fellow student leader and you want to collaborate with us on a future event, please reach out. Our contacts are below. And if you are a professional or a grad student and you want to come and share your insights with our community, feel free to reach out as well. But I won't take up too much time because I know we have very more important things to talk about, but that's just a little bit about us, and I'm hoping to hear from many of you after the event. And I think I will now be passing it over to Dorcas from the WomEconomics team to share a little bit more about their organization. All right, take it away, Dorcas.
All right, awesome. So I'm gonna try and be the fastest possible. I know I'm on a time crunch, but good evening, everyone. Very nice to meet you. My name is Dorcas, and I am the programs director here at WomEconomics. Very excited for the events today. So if you please go over to the next slide. Thank you. All right, awesome. So this is our team, and everyone on the team is on the call today. So if you could just quickly unmute your mics and say hi to everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you. Thank you. Next slide, please. All right. So who are we? WomEconomics is a non-for-profit organization that was founded in March of 2023, and we are a global force. Our commitment is to empower economics graduate as well as economics professionals, especially women, in three key areas: career development, building connections, and overcoming biases. Our vision is to empower aspiring economists by providing them with the tools and the resources that they need to thrive in their careers, and also ensure that they have the communities to do that. Our mission is to continue to build the career capacity of economics graduates as well as professionals globally, and again, tailored to women. And we also want to make sure that our events and our initiatives are tailored to promoting gender diversity in the field of economics and finance. We have four major programs. The first is our WE events. So it's comprises of an annual case competition, as well as the annual conference, where we invite HR professionals as well as industry experts to share their journeys as well as career insights. And then we have our We Connect, which is essentially what we have today. We invite very experienced professionals in different fields, specifically in the field of economics and finance, to share their wisdom with graduates as well as professionals. And then we have the We Grow events. This is where we come to you. So we have campus visits, and we administer boot camps as well as career workshops. So think about LinkedIn workshop or resume workshop to make sure that students feel a lot more confident going into the corporate world, and they feel like they're ready to brand themselves to potential employers. And the last is we podcast. So we do have each month, we invite an experienced professional to speak on their experience through a podcast. So we have a variety of career paths. So whether it be wealth management or actuarial science or even finance, we have all that in our week podcast series, which is all in Spotify. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is our 2025 in view. Q1 has already passed, which is kind of crazy to think about. But for Q2, we have a lot of events coming up. In April, we have a financial literacy. So if you want to get a lot of advice on how to build wealth as a student or as a professional or a business owner, this is going to be the event that you want to sign up for. In May, we're actually launching our mentorship program, which is really tailored to connect our mentees or students to experienced professionals who are willing to provide the mentorship support. And then in June, we have training, technical training workshop, which is focused on Excel, Python, SQL, and all those really key skills that are required of economics graduates as well as students. And in the summer, we have the summer hangouts. We're also launching an ambassador program, and we have the annual conference. And then in the fall, we'll be visiting campuses, delivering career boot camps as well as workshops. And November and December, we're going to be having our holiday mixer. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we've come to the last slide. So now you've heard all my spiel. If you would like to be involved in our programs, whether it be through volunteering or stay up to date on the events that we're having in terms of the dates, how to sign up, these are the QR codes. So please scan them for our social media, and that way we can all stay connected. So thank you very much again. I'm going to pass it over to Kenya.
Just realized I was muted, but yeah, all right. I think it is now time to introduce our amazing panelists. So we're going to start with Marina Moretti, who is the Deputy Director of Monetary and Capital Markets Department at IMF and is a financial stability expert. Marina, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Kaya. Just very briefly. So again, my name is Marina. I'm Italian. I'm a woman and an economist. I mean, we will have more time to speak about, my career path, but I've been essentially working my whole career at international organizations in the field of financial economics. Living in various places, mostly the United States, but also elsewhere, and changing topics over time as well. And how that occurred, I think, is going to be interesting to discuss. Right now, I am overseeing 3 areas: financial supervision and regulation, financial crisis management, and climate from a financial stability perspective. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Oh, just realized I was muted again. I need to stop doing that. But that was amazing. Thank you so much, Marina, for that introduction. But as like a fun little icebreaker for you, we know you've been traveling. You're in Toronto right now. What is your favorite travel destination? Thank you.
Now I am the one who is muted. This is very easy. Italy.
Okay. That's like a very cool place. I haven't been, but I definitely want to visit at some point. All right, and
Amazing.
then
Thank you, Marina, and welcome, welcome, welcome. I would love to introduce Erica. Erica is a senior credit analyst at McKinsey Investments, and she's also a sustainable finance expert. Everyone, please help me to welcome Erica. I want to see those emojis going up, the clap emoji, love emoji, hooray emoji. So, Erica, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes.
And Kenya, please, can you spotlight her video as well, please? Thank you.
Can you listen to me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I hear
No,
you. Yeah.
thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really honored to be here and speak with you about my career and my journey. As you mentioned, I'm a senior fixed income analyst at McKinsey. Now I'm covering the banking sector and the insurance sector, and the geography is North America. I'm also do sustainable fixed income integration and research and analysis. My last 2 main projects was the proprietary score of ESG for green bonds and sustainability linking bonds. I'm from the UST. I have a master in global affairs from the UST, and my bachelor degree is in economic and finance, and I did a minor in statistics. I did that in the University of Columbia. And I also hold a ESG certification from the CFA Institute. I work in RBC and Banco Santander and here in Mackenzie. Last year, I was in the ESG fixed income conference in New York talking about sustainability linking bonds. And no, I'm super happy to share with you my experience and how I developed my career. And I hope it's helpful.
It is helpful. Thank you, Erica. That is a heavy resume. Thank you for sharing your journey with us. Just for a nice, fun icebreaker, you say you have the CFA, you have your masters, you're doing this, you're doing that. What do you do in your free time?
I like to dance,
You like
salsa and bachata.
Oh, I love to dance
So that's my
too.
hobby. Yeah.
I love that. We should do dancing, dancing date or something anytime you're around. I love that. Thank you, Erica. And I'll pass it over to Kenya to introduce the next panelist.
My pleasure.
all right, and then next up we have Claire Fan, who is the senior economist at RBC Economics, and she is also the co-host of the RBC 10-Minute Take podcast. So let's give a warm round of applause, or just a warm welcome, since we are not in person and can't clap, to Claire. Claire, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I always appreciate the plug for a podcast. So, but yeah, it's 10 minutes. So if you got that, go give it a listen. But I work as a senior economist with RBC Economics. Been there since 2019, which was a year when, the world as we know it, or knew it, was still functioning relatively well. Obviously, since then it's been the pandemic, and so it's been quite a steep learning curve from my personal experience as an economist, but a very interesting one nonetheless. So hopefully today, with other panelists, we can have like a very helpful discussion in terms of helping the young graduates towards sort of bridging their path between school and the careers. Yeah, I think I can leave pretty much everything else to the rest of the panel discussion, actually.
That is perfect. Thank you, Claire. And then for your icebreaker, the question I have for you is, what sports would you compete in if you were in the Olympics?
Breakdancing, because we know the bar is low, right? No, I'm just kidding. I think I'll still do better than Australia, but hope no one's offended by that joke. Running, probably. I run quite a bit. So it's one of the boring sports, but it is one of the sports where if you do, as a regular person, put in the effort, you do see reward. So I really like it.
That's very cool. I've actually been trying to get into running myself, so
Yeah.
I'm glad to like meet a fellow runner. But yeah, I think I'll pass it off to Tanya to introduce our final panelist.
Yes, and our final panelist is Eriko Togo, not Erica, Eriko Togo. And she is the Deputy Division Director, Debt Capital Markets Division at the IMF, and she's a sovereign debt management expert. Everyone, give her a round of applause to Eriko. Welcome, Eriko.
So when people see my name without seeing my face, they assume I'm a male from Africa because my name sounds male, and then Togo is a country in Africa, and so somehow the image becomes, and then they get shocked to see me. But I am from Japan. Yes. I'm from Japan. I'm a female economist. I am currently working at the International Monetary Fund in the same department as Marina. And actually, with Marina, we go a long way back. We were together at the IMF as a summer intern, and that's where we met for the first time. So we both went back to school, and then we came back to Washington. First I started my career in Morgan Stanley in London, and then I went to New York, and then I went to Tokyo, and I went back to grad school, and then I came to Washington. First in the World Bank. I worked in various departments, and then we worked together. Our two institutions between the World Bank and IMF worked together, and there was an opening, and so the boss said, "Why don't you come over?" So that's how I crossed the street, and so I've been at the IMF for about 13 years now. So I'm very much looking forward to today's session, and thank you very much for organizing this. And you all are really amazing. At your age, I was not thinking about career or doing things for other people, thinking about issues, and so really deep admiration for you all. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Eriko. Thank you. And when you think about your different career paths, right? You've come from London to, US. I'm just wondering, and you're from Japan, right? So what's your favorite movie? Who would you give that to? Is it British? Is it, is it Hollywood? Like, who would you give that to?
Who would I give that to? So I thought about, I don't watch movie too much, but I thought I like old movies, like the 50s movies. So there are the romantic ones, and then there are some scary ones. But for today, I thought I'd say there's a movie called Gaslight, and maybe it's kind of interesting. The origin, maybe, or I don't know if it's the origin of the word, but it's good to know how things can be gaslit and to be aware of what that could look like. So
is that on Netflix or where can we find the movie? Is that on Netflix?
I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, you can see YouTube. It's an old, and it's about a lady, a husband who's a thief, marries a rich woman and tries to steal from her, and drives her crazy.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I'll definitely not be watching that because that might ruin my mood.
It's really scary.
But thank you for sharing that, Eriko, and welcome again. Okay, so I think we can begin with asking some questions just to really tie it into the International Women's Day theme. and just talking about women in economics generally. So Kenya, do you want to start off with the questions for our panel?
Of course. The first question we have is for Erica. What role does mentorship and sponsorship play in accelerating women's leadership? And what advice would you give to young women who are looking to advance their careers?
First, I have to say that I had never in my life a sponsorship. I have a lot of mentors and allies, but never a sponsor. A mentor guides you, sponsors elevates you and use the capital, the company capital to elevate you, and allies support you. I will say the way to have these three um, um, personalities in your life has to be by the way you build relationship, the way you speak about yourself. So you have to have like big goals and talk about not only your current accomplishments, but also where you wanted to go in the future in your career. You not only have to do the work well, but also have to try to be visible because sometimes you are very good doing the work and women usually are invisible. So speak about what are you doing and how you're trying to achieve. You need to have a group of people that support you, admire you, respect you, but is something that is reciprocal. So you have to do the same for people and have to be authentic, honest, and trusted. And also, when you start growing in your career, you can be the sponsor that you wish to have, even if you don't have, or the mentor that you wish to have. And you can be the sponsor and the mentor of your boss, of your superior, and that will be reciprocate onto you. So it is an important role. For women, it's hard to get those type of figures in your career. Don't be disencouraged by that. Your boss can be your mentor and your sponsor sometimes. And if you can get one, try to be the best version of yourself. It is super important, and I share some sources from Harvard University that have good insights, but in my personal opinion or in my personal experience, I never had. I always was in the position that I am because merit, and I searched all my job position by Google or by gaining, like through participate with several competitors. So it's something that I don't have, and I see the benefits of it, and I see some people that had and so some good advice from Harvard University, but I never had. So that is my most honest response to the question.
That was a beautiful answer. Thank you so much, Erica. I really liked what you said about it being a reciprocal relationship. I think I'm also finding it more and more that like we really just get back what we put out. Even with Tanya and I, the reason this event is happening is because I reached out to her at one of our events and I was like, hey, I'd love to do this event. And she was very warm and she was like, Kaya, this is amazing. We should do an event together. And now here we are. So very beautiful answer. Thank you so much, Erica. And I think I'll pass it over to Tanya now to ask the next question.
Sure. So Claire, what is one action that you believe that every person, regardless of their gender, can take today to accelerate their progress towards gender equality in our families, workplace, within friend groups? Just an action that you think we should think about when we really talk about accelerating action for the girl child.
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. And I think the answer to me, well, it kind of reminds me of this question, or more like a comment that I got from another panel discussion that I was participating. That one was more focused on the newer generation of younger women and how they're stepping to sort of their career, which really applies to this group as well, in this sort of economic backdrop that's filled with uncertainty, right? Labor markets are not doing that well. A lot of people, young people graduating, are probably worried about their career trajectories and that sort of stuff. So it's a lot of uncertainty. And then, one of the student in sort of the audience made this comment about how potentially she's really been looking for female mentors, and she's not been able to find any. So I think from my perspective, that changed a lot because, it's simply me stepping up, which I wasn't really thinking about any of that. Me stepping up to offer my help seems like I'm not really trying to push for gender equality or anything, but me being sort of female, obviously with that identity and stepping out there, made myself available essentially for people that are seeking help would kind of be enough. And it's not something that I would typically associate it with, I'm pushing for gender equality and by doing this, but inadvertently it really does. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. And I know like some of you might be thinking, I'm like a whatever second year, third year student, but all of us have something to give, I think. Even if you're in your third year, you probably know more better than the first year students. So, all of us, again, sort of being women and just putting ourselves out there, I think it's something that we can do, making ourselves available for people that have questions or, are just in pursuit of whatever help that they're needing for.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Claire. Putting yourself out there to be a mentor to someone, being open to give advice. And sometimes I feel like even for WomEconomics, how this started was we saw the problem and we became the solution. So sometimes you don't need to wait around to do anything big. Sometimes it's just you say, hey, I see you're struggling. Can I help you? Can I be your friend? Let me be your accountability partner. And that's what I'm hearing from you, Claire. Thank you for sharing. Does any other panelists have any actions that they think would be beneficial for the group to hear in terms of actions that we can take to accelerate actions for the girl child? Just putting that out there. Yeah, Erica?
Yeah. So I thought, sorry, go ahead. What I observed at the very beginning of this session that when you talked about who inspires you, and then you between Phoenix and Kea, you admire each other, and the amplification, you supported each other. I think that's super important, and I really, that was best practice. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Erica. Yeah, I was very inspired by that too. Okay.
Maybe if I can just come in 30 seconds, just to support what Claire said about the mentorship, I think it's super important. The sponsorships as well, there are a lot more time consuming. I've done both for guys and for ladies, and I think it is really helpful in just having ongoing conversation on what is it that people are looking for, in certain career stream, depending on whether the type of work, what it takes to transition to a manager, and just having that regular conversation. It's the cost to benefit ratio is a no-brainer, really, and so we should all be very, very open to do this.
Thank you for sharing. And Erica, I see your hand up.
I will say that one action that you should take is to be brave and go and speak about your ambitions, your value, what do you want to accomplish to people that you admire. Be brave. I will say nobody will speak about you as you, and that's something that you have to do, but you have to do it thinking on the value you have. All of you are very well prepared with the drive to contribute, and that's something amazing and not everybody has. So be brave. And this, I don't know, this platform invite us to do this. It's something that shows how brave you are. Continue to do that. and it's something that it will be reciprocated on you and your career.
Thank you, Erica. I love that. Be brave, be bold. I love that. Thank you for sharing. All right. And I guess I can ask Marina the next question. So, Marina, you know from your experience that the field of economics is heavily men dominated. And right now we have just 26 to 32% of women in the field who are thriving. Have you encountered gender biases through your career? And if so, how did you address them?
So to start with, let me just say that it is, yeah, I was reading around about this sort of women in economics and the statistics, and what struck me is that it's just about maybe 10 years, and all these articles started coming back about these ratios of, women in economics. And I think it is very important, because you cannot solve a problem if you do not understand that you have a problem in the first place. And so getting the facts right is just super important. Also in creating awareness, and the awareness is out there. So that's important, that we keep monitoring these ratios and try to understand what's behind them. And there is a lot of research being done in various universities on this topic. But going back to my own experience, as I said at the beginning, I always worked in international organizations, barring one little year as a teaching assistant at the very beginning. And, this has always been an environment that was very diversity aware. And then, Erica, of course, can come in and correct me if I'm wrong on all of what I'm going to say. But it was diversity aware more on nationalities and cultures than it was about gender. And so probably my first, training course of, working in a multicultural environment was something around the 90s. And so that's the sort of general environment where I operated. So I never really encountered a whole lot of conscious bias, but there is unconscious bias out there still now, quite a bit occasionally. And it's important that this has become also an important field that we're talking about, and we're monitoring, and we create awareness about it. And there are the occasional events, ranging from, the upsetting unconscious bias to the annoying, unconscious bias to the, surreal ones. And, I'll give you the example of the surreal one because it's kind of funny. One day I was in an office building somewhere in some part of the world, and the elevator was getting full, and I was sort of standing next to the door, and a group of guys came in. They looked at me and they said, 10th floor, or whatever floor it was, because they just assumed that the only woman sitting by the buttons in the elevator, would be the elevator woman. And so that was pretty surreal. I pressed the button, and that was the end of it. But, just a sort of little silly example on, these things still do happen. We see them a little bit around, even in very diversity conscious organization, and we need to create awareness and call them out. But the last point I wanted to make is, things have changed a lot. I've been in this field for many years. I'm not going to disclose how many, but, to give you an example of the place where Erica and I work, when I got my first interview to get a job at the IMF, there was a panel. It was diverse in terms of nationalities, but they were all guys. There was a guy from Argentina, a guy from Finland, a guy from India, a guy from Iran. They gave me a job. My first boss was a guy. The deputy boss was a guy. Then a few years later, I got a different job. The boss was a guy. The deputy boss was a guy. And then I got a few years later another job. The boss was a woman and was hiring me as a deputy. So 2 women. And that has been the trajectory all along. And if you think about it, you know, in the IMF, you know, the #1 top boss is a woman. The #2 top boss is also a woman. And we have reached a lot of diversity, you know, at all levels, and certainly including at managerial level. And I think, you know, things are progressing. There is still ways, you know, to go. But I think these kind of discussions that we're having here are really important in, you know, in continuing along this trajectory, which is still going to take time.
I agree. Thank you, Marina, for sharing that. I think you've said so many important things that I would like to highlight. The first is I'm happy IMF is, you know, championing, you know, the women in economics culture and really helping women to take on leadership roles, which is very important because when I see people like you up there, I know I can get there. And secondly, you mentioned something that in the 90s, diversity was more of, oh, you come from this country and that country. And then the other unconscious biases were swept under the rug as you being a woman or you being a Black woman or orange woman or purple woman, whatever colors that they give people these days. I think right now the world is trending in the right direction where we're looking at those biases that were swept under the rug and now bringing them up and empowering them. So thank you for sharing that perspective. I think that was a light bulb moment for me.
And I think, if I may add, you know, as a sequel to what you said, I think by itself, the fact that, you know, you see more women growing within an organization in itself helps address unconscious bias. You now actually now is a requirement in the fund that you know, the interview panels are gender diverse, are nationality diverse.
Yeah.
And because a lot of the unconscious bias is sort of affinity bias, people tend to unconsciously, you know, give preference to people that think like them, that look like them, that have gone to the same school and so on. And so that diversity built into the managerial ladder really helps, you know, sort of entrench diversity down the road.
Great. Thank you for sharing that, Marina. And I'll just ask the last question to Eriko, and then we can move to the more technical aspect of this event. So, Eriko, what inspired you to pursue a career in economics? Because you were in finance, I kind of moved back to economics. So wanted to know like what inspired you to do that, and how was that transition from private sector to international development?
So thank you for the question. And I try to answer in such a way that it might be helpful for the audience to build your own careers. And so I have three suggestions or how I made the transition, pursuing career in economics and making a change from private sector to international development and policy. So to arrive at a career where you want to arrive at your landing zone, first you need to set your goal. And I think Erica also mentioned that you have to have a goal. Second, you need to have a long-term plan. So in order to reach your goal, you need to think about, well, how are you going to achieve that goal? Third, you need to act on your plan. So it's just not just making the plan, but you have to make a conscious decision during your career path and to move towards your goal. And be aware that it's not going to be a straight line. So let me explain. So setting my own goal. So I used to live abroad as a child. I used to live in Mexico and Argentina. I saw poverty, and I thought, oh, I really want to help these people, and people in need, and I want to do something. I want to help. I want to be of service. So as vague as it is, that was my goal. That was my inspiration and my Northern Star. So for me, it was important to have this vague idea of what I want to do. On economics, I didn't even know this subject, that there is such a subject existed until I was way in my undergraduate degree. Even though I went to the London School of Economics, I was studying international relations, so I didn't care what economics was, and I had no idea what it was. So all of you who are in economics right now in undergrad, you're way ahead of me, and you're in good path. I came to study economics in my master's degree because I realized that in order to achieve my goal, I need to study economics. So that's how I started to get into the economics. So first point, just to say that you need to set your goal, even if it's very vague. Second, you need to create a long-term plan. So how did I come to create my long-term plan? Well, I attended a joint recruitment mission from the World Bank and the IMF. They come to universities. I think they come to University of Toronto too. I looked at the calendar. Last year they came in October. I'm sure they come again this year in October. I don't see it in calendar yet, but I really encourage you to go and listen. And then you're going to find that, wow, the conditions are really tough. You need at least 4 years working. At that time, they told me 2 years working experience. You need a master's degree, but it's so competitive that you actually would probably need a PhD degree. So that's like, oh my God, that's impossible. But I kind of thought, okay, let me get a job and get my tick my 2-year working experience. Let me try to take my master degree, and let's make that progress. So so that helped me to think about my plan, long-term plan. Third, you have to act on your plan. So I went and got my job, my first job at Morgan Stanley. It kind of had nothing to do with, helping people in the sense of the world, but it was, it was a really useful stepping stone. It's you learn so much, it was I matured, and it was a good experience. And the initial plan was to work for 2 years, but I stayed for 4 years. And oh my God, it was a comfortable life. It's good. Nothing's wrong about it. But I said, well, if I don't quit now and now move on to my master's degree, I won't make it to the young professional program or the economist program. So I took the decision to quit a good job. And then went to do my grad school, and then applied, and I got in. So it's just that you have to act on if you have a plan, you have to act and not get comfortable where you are, and you have to move on. And I thought maybe if you were to come out with this from me, set your goal, create a long-term plan, and act on your plan. So that's my recommendation.
Thank you so much, Eriko. It's really nice to hear about how it's nice to be comfortable in a position, but sometimes we just really need to take that change to get to the next step in our careers. Also, like I know for a lot of us, you might be like this, like our attendees, you might be in a similar age as me, where everything seems so far off, and it's like this huge, long journey. But I think, Eriko, I think you really said it well, just like taking it step by step and just having a plan and just sticking to it. Yeah, so thank you so much. That was a really great response. And I think now we are going to be moving forward into some more individualized career questions. So this is, we'll still have some discussion on just accelerating action in women in economics, potentially later on. But now we're just really going to get to know more about the careers of our panelists. So my first question is for Erika. Your career spans investment advising, government debt analysis, and now sustainable finance. Can you tell us more about sustainable finance and its relevance today? What initially drew you to economics and finance, and how did you navigate your path to Mackenzie Investments?
So I was listening Eriko to say what was her initial goal, and I get amazed by the similarities. So my goal was, when I was looking for a career, to help people. And I asked myself, I wanted to be a politician? No. what other career has more objective tools that help people out of poverty or income distribution, and I fall in love with economics. And I was in my 4th year of economics, and everything seems to be like a scenario analysis with assumption or a perfect world. And I say, I'm not going to be able to help anybody just with frameworks and assumptions. So I need something more concrete. So I discovered finance, and finance is money on actions. And I say finance is something that is more concrete. And I was studying finance in my last year. And I fall in love with finance and statistics because I couldn't see a path to apply and to make changes. And I discovered micro lending. So I say, this is something that I wanted to explore. But as Erico described, I found a career on capital market at Banco Santander. And I start to apply everything that I was passionate about it. But deep inside myself, I wanted to do something that really make an impact and contribute. I always have that in my heart. And when I moved here to Canada, I have the opportunity to do a master or an MBA. And I wanted to do a master that I more related with social and environmental and political, I don't know, knowledge that I could apply to finance and to find a path to really what drive my decision. And that's how I start to explore environmental, social, and government issues through the master. And then I get a position here at McKinsey, and the role was covering emerging market, general sector, but also develop ESG integration. Which was my goal when I was like 13 years old, young lady. And I fall in love with the practice. I fall in love with the applicability to fixed income. I really like how green bonds and sustainability linking bond has like a clear path to impact. And that's my connection with sustainability. There is a lot of, I don't know, noise about greenwashing, social washing, but for fixed income, it's more transparent because you see how companies invest on those projects. And for me, sustainability and impact is so important that it has to be beyond numbers and statistics. I need to see like energy solar plan, or I need to see social health numbers increasing. And that's something that made me so happy, like so many years after I dream about making an impact. That's how I get in sustainability, and that's how I combine finance and economics with it.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm pretty sure our attendees found that very, very insightful, and it might even help them kind of figure out like what they want to do and what path they might want to explore. So thank you so much, Erica. Yeah, and then for the next question, it is for Erico. You've worked in reputable global financial institutions from Morgan Stanley to the World Bank and IMF, like we heard about in your previous response. As a sovereign debt management expert, what trends or innovations in sovereign debt management are you most excited or concerned about?
Okay. So let me first explain to you what sovereign debt management is. So sovereign debt management is about governments ensuring that their financing needs are met at the lowest cost, subject to risk. And what comprises the government's financing needs? It comprises the government's primary deficit plus interest payments, plus the rollover needs of maturing debt that was issued in the past. So it's all the governments, they need to borrow in order to finance the excess in spending over your revenues, and you have to pay interest on past debt, and then you have repayment obligations, but you don't want to repay now, so you're going to roll over those existing debt. And many governments have enormous debt, maybe 100% of GDP. Some countries, like my country, has over 200, almost 300% of GDP. So these are enormous amounts of debt. And when governments are heavily burdened by debt, their credit worthiness starts to deteriorate and their borrowing cost starts to go up because investors starts to demand risk premiums. And when borrowing costs starts to go up and interest burden goes up, the government has to increasingly allocate larger and larger share in interest payment, and then you have to reduce health spending, education spending, investments in infrastructure. So it starts to have a very serious impact on the economy. So what's I guess my work is about managing risks, and when countries are getting into more and more difficulty, we try to help them. And so I guess when you ask, well, what excites you or what concerns you, my answer is always going to be, well, what concerns me. There's nothing much exciting in this area. But it's when things get worse, it's when debt burden becomes bigger and countries are starting to get crushed with debt burden, it has a very significant economic consequences for the citizens. So this increasing debt trends, when countries can't repay anymore, then they need to do something about it. And when it's something, when we mean you have to do something about it, when you often hear, well, the IMF always tell countries to cut. You need to cut expenditure. You need to raise revenue, but we don't just say that. There's a limit to what you can do with that. And so when there is such a limit, there has to be some kind of workout on the debt front. Your debt overhang, you have to deal with it. Just like if you were a small business or an individual, you cannot repay debt. You go to your bank and renegotiate your terms and maybe delay the repayment. You ask to lower the interest payment. And you do a workout. So governments are also doing that, and the IMF stands in the middle and try to help countries to renegotiate their debt and to get the country into a better footing so that they can come back and restore economic confidence and sustainability. So that's what we do, and that the fact that countries are increasing debt and entering in this kind of situation is what concerns us most.
Thank you for sharing that, Erica. I do understand everything you said, because we could get very technical for a couple of people, but it's just debt management and ensuring that countries are within the right levels, and if they need help, the IMF can intervene and help renegotiate the contract, I believe, to make it more palatable for them to repay, because they do have to repay the money they have borrowed. I understand. I know my country, Nigeria, we've been taking a lot of debts, and it's very interesting to see their efforts in repaying the debt. Some countries takes longer because there are still more economic turmoils happening. So definitely an interesting field, and I would encourage everyone to do more research on that and educate yourself on that. So thank you, Erica. My next question would go to Marina. So Marina, your career inspires me personally. I do want to have a sovereign career. You've worked in IMF, World Bank, and the OECD. Right now, you're working with the Monetary and Capital Markets Department. We do want to get a little bit more understanding on what your function is in that department, and then just advice on how to build an international career.
Okay, so what is a good sequel to what Erico said. And the way I typically put it to explain what a lot of people at the IMF do is to say we don't do things, right? Governments do things. We write about things, we advise. And the way we advise government is typically by writing papers for them, right? And so what I've been in the same department for my whole entire IMF career, which is relatively unusual. I mean, people tend to move around, but that's essentially what I do. So when I say I oversee, financial supervision and regulation, financial crisis management, and climate risks and climate finance, what essentially that means is that there are groups of people in each of these three areas that are providing advice to countries on how to improve what they do in these areas. Say on financial supervision and regulation, a lot of the work, we do different things. We do, we assess policy frameworks. In the IMF, we call it surveillance. And so there is a program that is dedicated to assessing policy frameworks specific for financial stability. We do technical assistance, which is going to countries that need to strengthen either their policy framework. We have a legal department that helps them, revise laws. We train them into, better banking supervision and regulation. And then we write policy papers that guide the advice that we give to countries. And the IMF, keep in mind, also lends, is an international lender of last resort. And so we lend to countries. And in that context, we have from our department, experts that can help, particularly, in the case of our work on crisis management. If there is a financial crisis, in many cases, that would be an IMF program. And then we will provide advice on the authority on, how to deal with that. You have a bank run, what do you do? You have an insolvent bank, what do you do? And once you solve the problem, then there are the banking supervision and regulation that go in to help strengthen supervision and regulation so that there is not, hopefully, another financial crisis, coming in. And so I like to see myself as sort of overseeing all this work done by staff within the department on helping countries deal with, the life cycle of financial institution, and making sure that the end of the life cycle, which is when a bank fails, is, you cannot eliminate the possibility, but becomes as unlikely a possibility as possible. So that's kind of what I do. I hope it was somewhat clear, but I appreciate any follow-up question. In terms of how I got there, actually, I mean, it was very what Erico and Erica said totally resonated with me with some personal tweaks, I would say. So I completely agree with Erico that you need to know what the goal is, but that may take a while. It certainly took a while in my case, and where I landed was very similar to where Erico landed, that I wanted to work on development, but it did take me a long time, and it was completely non-linear. I started as an undergraduate doing business. In Italy, as an undergrad, business and economics is the same faculty. You can major in one or the other, but it's the same faculty. And so I, my plan was to major in business. At the end of the first year, I was like, this is not my thing. This is just not my thing. I understand that, successful companies are the micro foundation of a successful country. but I was very interested in the macro and in the policy aspect, of making countries a better place to be, just sort of directly operating at the government level. And so I switched. I did economics for the other 3 years, and then, at the end, in Italy, the undergraduate is BA, but also MA. So you have a thesis. And my tutor, who was my supervisor for the undergraduate thesis, said, why don't you write a thesis on evaluation of development projects? And I was like, I'm not interested. I am a macro person. And then he said, well, what about if you write a thesis on evaluation of development projects? I'm going to send you on a summer internship at UNDP in New York. And I'm like, I'm taking this. I'm totally taking this. And so I did. And I worked on a very interesting project on evaluating housing projects in developing countries with the fabulous, UNDP Chilean lady whose name, Jimena de la Barra, now I remember. Really inspiring. And I was, and so that became the beginning of my passion on development. Then I did a master on development economics. And so, it took me a bunch of years to understand what my goal was. And so just, keep in mind that, your experience as an undergraduate is not just about learning the trade and acquiring a skill, but it's really to understand, the range of possibilities that are out there and what it is that really inspires you. So to really sort of open your mind and again, having events like this, are really helpful, to bring women or guys that have had different career experience to know, if you're an economist, there is a huge range of possibilities. Just, the four of us here are, just 4 examples, but there are many more. So number one, it takes a while, and so use your experience at U of T just to understand where you wanna go. The second point is, when I was reading this material on women in economics, the issue of being confident tend to be coming up quite a lot. And, I do agree, it's important to be confident. Now, keep in mind that women and men and different cultures behave differently, and so they should, right? There is no need that we all behave in the same way, but being confident is really important. So try to be confident. Keep in mind that being confident is not being arrogant. There is a lot of people that get those two very much confused. And so you can be confident and humble at the same time. And I think that is, should be our something to keep in mind. Be brave, as Erica said. This is really important. We can all be confident within our own comfort zone, but you don't get, career opportunities if you're afraid to get out of your comfort zone. So, take that leap of faith, because at the end of the day, a career requires skills, requires determination, but there is also an element of luck. Opportunities arise that should be, seized, even if it sounds crazy. But if that sounds like, an important step to take career-wise, being afraid, I don't think is helpful. Last point, be aware of the resources out there, because certainly to pursue a career in international organization, there is a bunch. And so Eric already mentioned, summer internships are certainly there, World Bank, IMF, I believe OECD, certainly all the regional development banks. So just, find out, what the requirements are. Those are important. I believe for the IMF is still, being enrolled in a PhD program is a requirement, but I don't think it is in others, if that's not, the path that you want to take. Many countries, which is how I got my first job, which was the OECD, have something called the Junior Professional Officers Program, which is, at least in my country, is sponsored by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And it is essentially a program where you apply to your government, and if you get selected, you get placed by them in an international organization of their choice. It's basically a program that is aimed to maintain representation starting from a young age, in international bodies. And so that's one. I applied for that. I got it. That was helpful, and was really the beginning of a career where I was at the OECD. They put me in a development cooperation directorate, which was the place that was discussing aid policies, development aid policies. And so I was there a couple of years, and then I said, I'm here doing development aid, but I don't know enough about development. I mean, I studied development economics, and so I applied for the World Bank, and I went in. And then when I was at the World Bank, at some point I got still in this young professional program that also Erika talked about. There was an email circulated around saying, any financial economist interested in moving to Thailand because there is a crisis. And I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. So I went home. I told my husband about we moved to Thailand. And he said, wow, that sounds interesting. Let's think about it. And I'm saying, I have to go next week. And so I went, and he came a few months later. And that was very interesting. And that was basically the shift toward my passion for crisis management work, because I realized that, if you have financial instability, development requires financial stability. It's just very important. And so, and then I moved to the IMF to do that particular work. So again, it's always a progression. Things change, the goals change as well, right, over time. But it's always, always important to understand eventually what your goals are, build a plan, understand what the resources are that can help you through that plan, and then be flexible, because that plan may adjust. The goal may adjust itself over time.
Yeah. Thank you, Marina. That was so inspiring. I see the comments going crazy with different hashtags. Be confident, seize the opportunity, be humble. Confidence is not arrogance. Upskill, always upskill. I always tell people that, I see another one, be flexible. So these are really some key nuggets that I hope that we're taking today. Continue to improve on yourself, but have the long-term goal, have the career goal, the long-term goal, and then take actions to get there. So thank you, Marina, for sharing that and sharing your story. I'm very, very inspired. And the last question in this segment would go to Claire. So Claire, you work on forecasting key macroeconomic variables like interest rates, immigration, trade, and as a bank economist, you give comments on what's going on in the Canadian economy and how we can, prepare policies to help the economy move forward. Can you walk us through your approach to economic forecasting? What do you think about when you're writing your reports? Because I know a couple of people here will be interested in learning how bank economists think and the kind of analysis that is done.
Yeah, for sure. So a bit more on exactly what I do. So from a practical level, as you guys probably know, all Canadian banks, well, there are only a handful to begin with, are required to undergo pretty stringent regulatory sort of IFRS 9 framework that was developed after sort of the 08 and 09 global financial crisis. So the point of that is really to ensure during economic downturns, and kind of continuing the theme from Marina, banks are resilient and well capitalized to deal with these situations. And if there were to be a bank run, there's enough reserve and provisions around to deal with delinquencies and whatever loss in cash. So that's basically the primary function, really, where our economic forecast would go to. Is there's a huge risk department within each bank as well, and they kind of take our forecast specifically where we think the unemployment rate would go in Canada, for example, and some other important indicators as well, interest rates and longer end bond yields. They take those forecasts and they run a number of scenarios on them. So more recently, obviously, given everything that's going on with trade, there's a tariff scenario that's being developed as well. And then they come up with sort of the credit provisioning process, or essentially a number really different stages of losses. And what that does is that impacts the bank's earning on a quarterly basis. So that's sort of the flow of process on the more practical side of the things I do, which is certainly interesting. And to your question more specifically on forecasting, there's a couple of things. I think probably my opinion is biased by just how much sort of, really tail risk events, pandemic, and then obviously again you have sort of the trade environment uncertainty. Even today, I mean, Trump imposed like 25% tariff on finished auto products into the US, which is going to impact how we forecast things. So it's becoming increasingly the environment, these unlikely events are having a giant impact on how we do things and how we forecasting things, which models could never have foreseen, essentially. So modeling obviously is a big part, as it should be, of how we do our forecast. And it's really only useful when you can reasonably anticipate. So the first thing that I learned is, back in school, and you guys are probably all doing this, what you do is you take a paper, you try to replicate what the model is and trying to essentially get the same results, or you're trying to develop your own regression model using, whatever techniques that you think is suitable. And then what you're trying to get is a higher R-square, essentially, and meaningful variables that explain the results. But then the first thing that I learned upon, going to my job is, in order to forecast GDP, let's say you need to forecast A, B, C, and D. The practical sense is that you need to be able to know what A, B, C, and D are trending in order to get to your GDP forecast. So it's not backward looking. You're not trying to get the perfect R-square. It matters more what indicators are available for you and what data you're looking at, and how you think about that can inform and how well you can forecast these independent variables that ultimately goes into your GDP forecast. So that was something that's, and I think if you're thinking about becoming an economist, either with central bank, which obviously does very different things from private banks here in Canada, knowing data in a sense that not only knowing the modeling side of things, which school obviously does a good job in terms of teaching you, but also knowing what data is available out there. Go on Statistics Canada's website, see what they're putting out every month, data releases different, be really immersed with data and knowing what dates they're coming out, essentially. Paid labor market reports are every first Friday of the month. So these things really give you a good sense, at least hopefully, of where the economy is going. And that's really the thing that we look for in our interviews as well, with sort of the hiring process, is essentially someone that has a good sense of what's going on. Someone's hopefully that's a bit detached from school. Obviously, school takes tremendous work as well to do well in, but also just knows, is there more likely to be a rate cut or a rate hike at the next Bank of Canada meeting? And how's the housing market doing? What are we thinking? And so these are all important things. And stay informed. Yes, someone's coming. Yeah, exactly. Stay informed with what's really going on, and be truly interested, and try to look through these things through the lens of data as well, I think is number one, or perhaps most useful advice that I can give to anyone that's potentially going into that, like, job looking for your first job process, especially in the field of economics. And I think I wanted to talk about something else. And then for my personal the one other thing that I do want to talk about, at least for my role, which so we talked about the more practical side of my job, which is obviously to produce credible forecasts. And our work is being audited by, so RBC is being audited by PwC. What that means is, there's a difference between us and sell-side economists that, can potentially afford to deviate from consensus and be okay with it, walk away with that kind of forecast. we really have to have a good reason if we're deviating. So we are literally putting our credibility on the line when we're putting these numbers forward. So it's really supposed to be, you know, even there's a huge qualitative aspect to the forecasting process. As I mentioned, you do need to exercise judgments. For example, in like a supposedly trade war that where average tariff rate goes to the highest since 1930s, right? So there's very little precedence of what's going on right now. So in this scenario, obviously, there's a huge element of using your own judgment to trying to parse out what's really going on here. But even then, you know, coming up with what's credible and making sure that this really is what we think the most likely case would be is hugely important. And I think having that, you know, sort of as a guiding principle of how we do our forecasting process is incredibly important. Outside of that, again, if you are thinking about coming to a bank, specifically my role or something similar, as even central banking, but probably once you get to the higher level, I think what I didn't anticipate was I knew I liked to do research, and it's kind of obviously the career path that I chose accordingly. But I didn't expect there to be such a huge communication aspect to it. Writing is hugely important, and the thought just in terms of communicating well, but not in terms of trying to be the smartest person in the room. More so, you know, especially as bank economists, again, we do go out to talk to clients quite a lot. And we do go out to inform different internal groups as well. You could be talking to wealth management, you could be talking to different parts of the bank. So it's really important for us to be saying things and we present on to media as well, to an average Canadian out there. So it's really important to dumb things down, for lack of better words, and to really make sure that whatever we're trying to say get through to the audience that we're trying to reach. Same with the presentations as well. And I think there's value in that. There's really value in that in potentially scaling up our work. Even from a central bank's perspective, you do see the Bank of Canada starting to do press conference, which they didn't used to do after every single rate decision. They only used to do it every couple of rate decisions. So that's their effort as well to really communicate with the Canadians out there. Because upon, you know, the rate hiking cycle back in 2022, the question that we get the most is, so what if my bananas are like 2% more pricier? Is it worth it for my mortgages to all of a sudden mortgage payment to go up so much because rates are rising? And that's a fair question, right? But how do you communicate that, containing inflation, make sure something like the 80s doesn't repeat itself again is hugely important, and more important perhaps than, you know, your near term actually mortgage payments or debt service getting crushed a little bit. So it just, I think there's real value in terms of what I do, and this is leading into my next point as well. I really sort of resonate with what Marina said about being passionate about what you do. You have to like what you do. You have to love what you do. At the end of the day, that's how you make sure you know, put in the best amount of work, and you know, you put in sort of, be proud of it essentially as well. At the end of the day, really be proud of the results that you're achieving. So I think the sort of composition of what I do is something that I find incredibly, to me, provide value to myself as well. This is how I think I contribute to, and I think that's a theme throughout sort of the answers as well. What do we want to do? How do we provide value? How do we add value and provide, you know, provide it back to whoever, in my case, is, you know, the average Canadian out there that's potentially just confused about what's going on with inflation, that sort of stuff, outside of the stuff that we're currently doing for the bank's sort of regulatory side of things. So I think it's a good mix personally for myself, and I quite thoroughly enjoy it. And yeah, so if anyone's potentially interested in sort of these private sector economist roles, Bay Street economist roles, you can reach out to me as well.
Oh, thank you, Claire. That was so informative. And I think it was more digestible to everyone, because you see the mortgage rates going up, you see the interest rates going up, you're cutting it, and you're like, why are they cutting it? How does that affect you? If you're not subscribed to the RBC Economics reports, they are one of the most digestible reports. I think your team, Claire, I personally consume your report. They're easy to understand. They tell you everything going on in 3 bullet points, and you know what's going on in the economy, okay? And they have the podcast as well. So I think, Claire, I want to give your team kudos, because your team is really helping us understand economics at the layman level, which is very, very important, you know? So thank you for sharing that, and sharing how, you know, the reports that bank economists write reflects in, the NOI of companies that they report quarterly. I think it's easy to comprehend why that affects, the process and the flow. But thank you for sharing that. And I hope we have a better understanding of what bank economists do and the kind of analysis they do. And if you're not subscribed, go subscribe to RBC Economics reports. They are very helpful. And I think it helps with your writing skills as well. When you're reading lots of reports, you begin to shape the way you write those assignments, the way you communicate so that you're clearer and your readers understand your flow and your thought process. All right, so I will pass it on to Kaya to ask the closing question. If you do have questions, you can put that in the chat, and would have an opportunity for people to ask their questions to all panelists. But after that, we're going to go out to breakout rooms where you can have more intimate discussions with our panelists. But Kaya, I'll let you ask the last question, and then we'll take a few questions. But if you have questions, now you can put them in the chat. Thank you.
So good.
Also, before I ask the final question, which is very in the theme of women in economics, I just want to note that all of the resources that we've mentioned in our discussion, I believe that some of our panelists even put the links in the chat. We will put them in a follow-up email. We do already have those on our end as well, which our lovely panelists were kind enough to send us. So that you will receive all of that following this session. But yeah, let's get into our final question. Honestly, this one is one of my favorites, and I think a lot of people were asking this in our registration form as well. So, to all our panelists, what do you think women bring to the field of economics that enhances research, policymaking, or industry practices? Have you found that being a woman in economics has given you a unique opportunities or perspectives that your male counterparts may not have?
So who's going to take this one?
Oh, it's open to all of you. So if you want to take turns.
Okay, I'll try. Look, this is a tough one because I honestly think that that men and women are both excellent economists, and to the extent that they have different qualities, they should in a sense converge, right? And it's super different across cultures as well. But what three qualities I wanted to point out that struck me that ladies tend to have, from my experience, I may be wrong. One is the ability to multitask. And maybe it is because we are multitasking the whole time, because on top of having our day job, we have our families. And so it's a constant juggling of a whole range of things. And so again, depending on culture, there are obviously cultures in which, men don't need to multitask, certainly in terms of having to take care of family and at the same time of work. And so that's something that always struck me as interesting. The other one is, is there, are women more level-headed than guys? I don't know if it's true, but certainly, in some parts of, the work that I have done, I found fascinating when you are in a financial crisis management kind of business, by design, people that call you are stressed out by design, because there is something going very, very wrong. And that is, it creates a lot of motivation because, you're there to help and they're calling you. And it can be, country team within the IMF, or it can be country authorities, but you got to stay calm. And I don't know, whether, there is any evidence of a gender difference, in those practices. But as I said at the beginning, I think, a better question, should be, what are the qualities that women tend to have more than men should acquire, and what is the other way around? Because I think converging to be good across the board is really what we are aiming to achieve.
Thank you,
can
Marina.
go after Marina, and I will say the same as her. It's hard to answer specifically to women or men. I think when you are a good professional, it doesn't matter the gender or, I don't know, your origin. Your skill set is something that stand out beyond those qualities. But I will say in any job or room that I've been, when I speak up or when a woman speak up, you give voice to the people that is silenced normally. So we have that power. So when you have the courage and you start speaking up and mention and asking questions, other people, in doesn't matter the gender or the quality, start to speak up. So we have that power. That's why I think having diversity is super important, to have voices and diversity inside of the research and economics and politics, and that we have that power. I'm agree that we are better managing crisis. It's funny how in the movies it's always the men that solve all the crises, but in reality, we are the ones that we are able to handle crisis. And the other thing that I've noticed, and I'm not gonna say is woman or men, is people that have more female characteristics are more able to analyze different scenarios, variables, so more male-oriented personality tends to focus on one set of variables and get super proficient in that, and more female-oriented personality has the capacity to analyze like a huge numbers of variables, scenarios, geographic. So that is something that I feel we can bring to the table, but it's not assigned to gender, it's more assigned to personalities in general.
Thank you for sharing, Erica. I love those points. We're learning about our female superpower. So, Erica, Claire, do you want to
Okay.
ask one more?
I'm gonna try. It's a very difficult question. So I also agree. I mean, it's probably not male, women. Some men are really nice and feminine or even feminist. So it kind of hard to say, but I thought maybe I'd share something I read by a journalist, Kati Kay. She's a BBC anchor. I'm sure you've seen her on TV. With her co-author, she's written a few books, and this is about the book is called the Power Code, I think, and they kind of looked at male leadership and female leadership, but actually in the end they said, okay, this book is for both gender, but kind of the old way of power, it was about power over people or power over an organization. So it's kind of was very unappealing to many women, including myself, and I had very little ambition to become a leader. But what really clicked with me when I read her book is she said, power can be seen like power. It's a power to do something good. It's not about power over, but if you think of power as it enables you to do something good, that really resonates with my goal. And okay, if I become a leader, I can do something more with the good that I want to do. And so that's kind of I thought, wow, it's a way to look at things. And but that kind of thinking resonates a lot with women, and it helps for women to become a leader in their fields. And again, it's not at the end of the day, it's not women or men. I think it applies. Some men also would want power to do something good. But I thought that was interesting to be aware, and a little bit of the gender dimension, but an interesting read, for your future when you think about, career progression and taking leadership. And don't be discouraged to become a leader, because to be a leader, you can do more good things and, achieve your dreams and goals.
That's a beautiful perspective. Thank you, Eriko. Power to do something good. Thank you. And Claire, did you want to add something as we round this up?
No, I think, I don't have anything to add to that. So it's very well said.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, our amazing panelists. This was great. Does anyone have any questions for them? Or should we go to the breakout rooms? Then we can have those questions. I would give it a minute. Does anyone have any question? Oh, Joshua? You are muted.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So I wanted to ask this question for all the panelists. So what advice would you give to someone who's finding it really hard to motivate themselves, especially in trying to move forward in the field like this, something like economics? What's the best thing you'd say to them to be able to keep pushing?
So to me, I go back to my advice. Think what's your goal? What do you want to do? Find your passion. I think that's the first step, because unless you are interested or you want to do something, it's very difficult to become motivated. I'm with you. It's just, you don't want to study economics for the sake of economics because it's good for your career. It's because it's going to help you to achieve your goal. So think about, take your time, step back, go for a walk, and think, what really drives me? Who am I? What do I want to do? Think, take a step back and think deeply about these things. Take your time and think about it. And I think that will help you to enlighten and and maybe economics is not for you. It's just, it does, you don't, as we all of us said, it's not a straight line, and we we want to try different things and discover, but think about what brings you happiness. I think that's the starting point.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Eriko.
and just
Thank
just
you.
to add, sorry, Joshua, do you want to come in and then?
Oh, no, sorry. Please go ahead.
No, I just wanted to, I completely agree with Eriko, just to, it is not just, it's a sort of, is a career, is a lifelong principle that is extremely important. I mean, even when, we manage our staff, people are good at what they like. And so managers need to understand what their staff likes to do. And, understand what their goals are, so that they can help them achieve those goals by lining up, assignments they like and therefore can do well. I mean, the same way as, you need to understand, what really inspires you. And maybe it's like my, first year doing, marketing and accounting is like, ain't my thing, I'm going to move on, But yeah, so it's a pretty fundamental. I mean, it's a very important question that you ask, but it's a very fundamental thing that you need to resolve, or whomever it is that needs to resolve it.
I agree.
But what if it's a situation where you're passionate about economics, you like the subject, but you just find, the process of going through it extremely difficult, and the motivation factor isn't just coming. You really like it, you really want to do it, you want to move forward, that you see it as a career that you want to put in your future, but it's just very hard to go along those lines.
Yeah, and so let me give you, my experience. Once I switched, from business to, from business to economics, and I understood myself as being a good student. I did not pass my first math test, and I was super shocked, and because it was difficult. I'd done very little math in high school. And I thought the way to learn math was to just memorize theorems, and I would get a good score. That's not the way it works. And so you just persevere, get help, get a group of people. I mean, we were, good friends. Neither of us passed the exam. We spent the whole summer studying and doing tests, practically, and so get a group of people that can support and understand what the resources available that can help you, because there should be resources out there. Ask your friends and colleagues, because if it's difficult, it's often just a matter of perseverance and help, and I hope the U of T can provide that help.
Yeah, I would
Thank
agree
you
with
so
that.
much.
And I think also, well, at least like my experience with school, especially I did my master's in Western. It was a small program for financial econ, and the courses were tough. And the first semester it was extremely tough because we were also looking for a full-time job. So we were basically, by day we're taking classes, doing our whatever assignments, and then by nights we're submitting applications to like 50 openings a day. So it was very hectic, but I think being intentional and knowing that at the end of the day, the point of being in school is to make sure you learn better, right? Like be intentional and know that is the case. Make sure you come out with hopefully the right set of skills. Teamwork is another great skill. Obviously, I don't think is more been focused more on in terms of, but all those group projects, they have a purpose as well, is to make sure that you can function well in a group setting, which is hugely important when you come into any work environment as well. So it's never about passing the course or getting straight A's, even though to some it may appear to be, but it's so much more about being able to stay curious, being able to make sure that you learn quickly and you pick up things in a systematic way and you learn effectively. It's that skill to me. That's what school gave me, and not so much about what I really learned in econometric in terms of like solving like models and that sort of stuff. Although that's also helped sort of the technical side of things. So I think just keeping that in mind, and maybe if it helps breaking things down into smaller, less daunting tasks, that could also help. Instead of thinking, there's this giant final exam that's happening in 4 months. It's like, okay, I'll just get through this chapter. Let's just get through this chapter first. And then we'll move on to the next and to the next. And then eventually, hopefully, you'll get there. But yeah, having good people to support around you as well, knowing you're definitely not the only one that's going through these challenges. I mean, as we're all speaking right now, we've all been through it. It's been tremendously tough in the past. So yeah, just knowing that you're not alone in the journey, and hopefully you can sort of, like again, Maria said, persevere and come out of this, unscathed.
Beautiful. Thank you, Claire. That was beautiful. Thank you, Marina, as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Josh. That was a great question. All right. So let's go to our breakout rooms, and
Do we have the time for the breakup rooms?
We're gonna do it quickly.
Oh, okay.
Just like 10 minutes.
People want to get intimate with the speakers, so we'll do it quickly and then come back to the rooms, okay? All right, so Kaya, can you take us away?
Yes, also just a quick note, there are some people that may not be able to access breakout rooms, so I've assigned it so that they can stay in the main room, and Marina will be in the main room with those people. And then I've also so if you don't get an invitation to join a breakout room, just stay here. Do not leave, please. And then the rest of you should have an invitation to pop out into another room. All right, I'm opening the rooms now. Everyone, I guess we'll meet back here in about 10-ish minutes. So yeah, have a good time in the breakout rooms.
Thank you. See you there.
All right. So welcome everyone to Marina's breakout room. Just as a reminder, I'm sure you remember, but she's an IMF economist. Does anybody here want to start it off with questions? Or like maybe introduce themselves, just say hello. That way you're memorable. So if you do want to reach out on LinkedIn. Oh, yes. Joshua?
What advice would you give to people who are trying to aspire in this kind of career field, but would I say some things are kind of hindering them, maybe race, maybe gender, something like that?
Sorry, can you repeat the last part? They are interested
Okay.
in this field, but
They have some things hindering them, like maybe their race or their gender.
you mean in the field of economics or in
Yes.
in the field of economics more generally? Look, I mean, certainly for gender, but a lot of I was looking up. That's why there are these kind of groups that organize these kind of events, and a lot of the I was looking around in a number of other universities that have similar initiatives. There are not just, even if they're called women in economics, they're typically open to, broader issues related to diversity and race may be included as well. And so, I mean, these kind of support groups are really what help, right? In terms of, the policies of international organizations, we do not have quotas, if you wish, for nationalities or for gender. But we do monitor those very closely, again, because we need to know where we are to understand, whether we need to make more progress. And we have made progress, but we need to make more. And so I think, while, hiring policies and promotion policies are, merit-based, people also look at, ensuring there is a good sort of diversity within those institutions, because we do believe that diversity leads to better decision. It surfaces, different, policy views, and then, eventually people argue, different views and then land on a better place than just having sort of a uniform view that is only led by people with, coming from, uniform backgrounds. So that, would be, my main thought in that space.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything they want to talk to Marina about? Maybe introduce themselves. If not, I do have some prompt questions, but
maybe I'll ask a question to the people in this room, which is, oh yeah, okay. Navi, I see you have one. No, I just was interested. I was reading an article today because I was prepping myself. And it was interesting because, so it was a conversation, it was a panel among ladies that are professors at three, I think it was Harvard, Chicago, and I can't remember the other one, what it was, but they were talking about women in economics. And one of the things that they said was that, women and men tend to prefer different fields of economics. And actually, I'm gonna, and it was interesting because macro and finance were, which are my field in a sense, are the male-dominated ones. What was it? Oh yeah, macro, econometrics, and finance are male dominated, whereas labor, education, health, and industrial organization, at least in the US, seems to be more, the ones that get more sort of women students. Do you associate yourself with that? Have you observed it? I mean, do you, do you get it in your own experience that that's kind of what inspires you? Or I was just interested. I mean, how many macro lovers are in this group, and how many finance lovers?
I used to be a big fan of macro, but I think these days I'm really interested in health economics. So like when you said that that's one of the things that women lead more towards, I was like, oh, that is very interesting to know. And then even education economics, that's what my research opportunity program is in. So it's good it's interesting to know I'm kind of falling on like the usual spectrum, but I think it's great when like, to explore other fields and to break out
Yeah.
into like maybe the ones that are more
No,
male
and all
dominated,
of
like
these
you
are
are.
interesting. I mean, I always say, there is nothing more, educational economics and, looking at human capital. I mean, human capital is often from an educational, perspective. Of course, health is part of it, inherently, but, there is nothing more macro critical than giving people in your country a solid education in terms of, raising the living standards. And so, it's a fascinating field. But Snavia, you had a question, I think. Or you raised your hand for.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a more general question. So my background is in marketing, but I'm really interested to like learn about like your experience. And I was just wondering, what was the most defining moment in your career that you would say shaped where you are today? If you had to just like point it at one, I know like there must be so many, but
So definitely when I switched from business to economics, it was a super high stress moment. And to the point that I remember I called my dad, and he came. I mean, he wasn't very far away, but different city, just to basically tell me in person, do whatever you like, which he would rather tell me in person. But I thought that support was really important. Yeah, I mean, other than that, there have been a number of occasions where, opportunities came out completely out of left field that have completely changed my career. And whenever, people sometimes come to me saying, I was asked whether I would be interested in doing this or that. And I always say, I mean, it's if you think that's something that you can, that inspires you and is interesting, just take it. These are opportunities that don't come all the time. Take that leap. And I've had 2 or 3, the email saying, does anyone want to go to Thailand? That sort of really redefined, my career on crisis management. And but yeah, so I would say these sort of things that, either that you convince yourself that you were pursuing the wrong goal and you need to, redirect.
yeah, no, 100%. I would say that looking out for opportunities would be one very big thing. And then the other thing that we did talk about before, just being flexible and open to ideas and not restricting yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, flexibility is so important. Also, I mean, it's so important to be always available to others, that may, for whatever reason, want to have a chat. and open door policy is an absolute must, because we are here to help out. I never thought I had once someone who had just joined the fund to came to me and said, talked about me being her role model because I was, a woman in a senior. I never thought of myself being a role model for anyone. I just want to be of help. But to what extent, to the extent that they see me that way, I'm glad. Oops, everyone is coming back.
We made it back.
Did everyone have a good
Welcome
time in
back.
breakout rooms?
Great.
Thank you. Yeah, we were able to get 2 questions in, so that was good.
That's awesome. We had, I think, 3 questions in.
3 questions? Oh my, okay. Who
Lots
was
of
in your group?
Sorry?
Who was your panelist? Which panelist was in your group?
Erika.
Erica. Okay, Erica, we gave you short answers. Great, that's good. And for Claire's group, were you guys able to get any questions done?
Oh yeah, we get 3 questions as well.
3 questions. Okay,
Yeah.
that's great. Okay, lovely. Happy to hear that. Does anyone want to just share one thing that they took away from that breakout room session in 30 seconds, please? 30 seconds.
Yeah, because the meeting's gonna end right at 8, so we have to be careful.
Yeah, yes. And Geneme.
Hi, it's Egemen. Yeah, so I had Claire for my session and it was really awesome. And one takeaway for me is that a master's degree is definitely important to set yourself up for success if you want to be an economist. And it's very important to saturate your daily routine with market news just to keep update.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Adewumi?
Yeah, my breakout room we heard from Marina was amazing, and she mentioned about the importance of always taking opportunities when they come, and try not to shy away from them. You may end up traveling the world.
Yes, I love that. Thank you. Okay, so as we round up, please, I would invite everyone to please turn on your camera. We need to take this accelerate action screenshot before this call goes out. If you can turn on your camera and yeah, we can take a accelerate action screenshot. Okay, thank you. All right. Who's gonna take the picture? We need a large gallery view. So Kenya, this is going off at 8 exactly?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so let's do that. 3, 2, 3, 2, 1. Can we all say accelerate action?
Accelerate action.
Amazing. I hope someone else is taking a screenshot. 3, 2, 1 for the last time. 3, 2, 1. Accelerate action. Accelerate action.
Accelerate action.
Amazing. Thank you all for coming. Marina, Erica, Claire, this was fantastic. I see everyone's faces looking so happy and joyous. I personally have to go revisit my career goals and make sure I'm aligned with where I'm trying to go. But this was so helpful. Thank you, Kenya. Thank you, UEC team, WomEconomics team. You were all fantastic. I hope you have been encouraged to take action and continue to be good mentors to people all around us. There's always something we can give. Marina, Claire, Erica, thank you. We really appreciate it. I hope to do this another.
Pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you.
It was fun.
Thank you
for
all. It was
organizing.
great. Thank you for
Thank you so much.
giving
Thank you
us
so
the
much,
opportunity
everyone.
to
Thank you.
to talk.
You are
Thank you so
welcome.
much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Antonia, for organizing everything as well.
Thank you.
Bye.
You're welcome.
Thank you.